Hello and welcome to the broadcast from inside UCP Headquarters for this Wednesday, May the 3rd. I'm your host, Bruce McAllister. Great to be with you, and thank you for joining us. A very significant announcement today from the UCP, a very revealing announcement that we will get to shortly. We will also have Fort McMurray-Lac-La-Biche MLA candidate Brian Jean joining us to discuss that. And VC Vitor Marciano from the UCP War Room will also be along on the broadcast this evening. But first, shocking revelations, frankly, about an NDP net zero electricity grid promise and the cost of that plan. It would, frankly, have a huge impact on your monthly utility bills. The UCP recently put out a commercial explaining this project. Let's go to that now.
We will transform Alberta by moving our electricity grid to net zero by 2035.
Rachel Notley supports Justin Trudeau and Stephen Guilbeault's plan to mandate a net zero electricity grid by 2035. An independent research firm did the math, and Rachel Notley's plan would cost Alberta a lot. In fact, it would be the most expensive election promise in Alberta political history, coming in at an eye-popping $87 billion between now and 2035. It would also dramatically increase the risk of the power you rely on not being there when you need it. It means your power bill would go up by 40%. That hurts everybody. Single workers, families, seniors, farmers and ranchers, and small business. Alberta can't afford Rachel Notley and Justin Trudeau's reckless and risky energy policies.
Our government will introduce an overall oil sands emissions limit.
The UCP government is committed to a reasonable plan to modernize our grid by 2050. Over a 30-year period, Alberta businesses can use innovation and long-term investments to make a real difference in emission reductions. That's the Alberta way. The UCP is moving Alberta forward. We can't afford to go back. We can't afford the NDP again.
Well, today the UCP came out swinging and took dead aim at the, I guess, Trudeau-Notley net zero electricity grid promise, and held a press conference of their own where they unveiled the cost of this project, and they talked about the impact that it would have on families. Fort McMurray-Lac-La-Biche candidate Brian Jean was there. So was Calgary Shaw candidate Rebecca Schultz. Here's what Rebecca Schultz and Brian Jean had to say earlier today.
And like the carbon tax, it is a policy that particularly hurts Albertan families. Albertans across this province should be very concerned about Rachel Notley's commitment to Trudeau's net zero electricity grid by 2035. Why? Well, because it's the most expensive political promise ever made in Alberta history. It's not only unrealistic, but it's also very dangerous to the long-term viability of our economy. Everyone from mums and dads, business owners, farmers, right across Alberta would bear the brunt of this anti-Alberta policy that comes straight from the desk of Justin Trudeau.
Rachel Notley and Justin Trudeau's accelerated plan for net zero electricity by 2035 will cripple Alberta's economy and hurt Albertans. I hear from Albertans every single day that affordability and the cost of living are top of mind issues for them, and power bills are high enough. I know that Alberta's businesses feel the same way. This NDP promise will impact all Albertans over the next 12 years. I'm sure it won't be one of their major campaign announcements, but it is something that the NDP is planning to do. Rachel Notley wants to sneak the most expensive promise ever made in Alberta politics past Albertans. We won't let her, because we are putting Albertans first.
You know what's interesting about this is even the Saskatchewan NDP are not in favor of what Prime Minister Trudeau proposed for the electricity grid program that the NDP here in Alberta are supporting. In fact, the NDP in Saskatchewan said it goes too far and it goes too fast. And so they are not behind it. But of course, Rachel Notley's group is. The costing of it is extraordinary. Let's tonight welcome to the program from Fort McMurray-Lac-La-Biche, the candidate for the UCP, Brian Jean, of course, the Minister of Jobs, the Economy and Northern Development. Brian, I know you're on the road. Thank you for, great to see you. Thanks for taking some time for us. Just speak to what was unveiled today, I guess, and the cost of it and the impact it would have on Alberta families.
Well, we found a couple of places where Rachel Notley has actually promised to go to a net zero electricity grid in Alberta. And we've had that costed out by independent experts, which indicates that there'd be about 52 billion, that's billion with a B, required in infrastructure investment by Alberta to retrofit power plants, et cetera, but also another $35 billion loss in opportunity. And so somewhere around 87 billion plus. That doesn't even take into consideration the cogen that we do here in Alberta. As you know, we do a lot. We get a lot by cogeneration, 42% sometimes in our grid. And that's not even costed into it. So at least 87 billion, more than likely, significantly more than that. And, like the carbon tax, Bruce, you remember that. All of a sudden, they talked about it a couple of times. And they got elected and they made it part of their not campaign promise, but they're part of their campaign reality. This is what we got. We're going to campaign on it. And that was a carbon tax. Trudeau, Notley put in the carbon tax. It is costing people a lot of money right now. It's going to triple here in the next few years. And they want to throw that at us as well as this net zero electricity grid. The amount of money is staggering. It's absolutely staggering. The biggest promise ever made by any politician in Alberta's history.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, really, and good on the UCP to dive into some of those numbers. And to those of you at home, this is what live television looks like when you've got a minister and a candidate on the side of the road with a microphone out in the wind and the elements. And Brian, again, we appreciate you stopping to take some time. I always want to bring this home to the people and the Alberta families. This is going to have, if it came to fruition, which it won't unless the NDP wins, which they won't. If I can say that as the host, you can't. In any event, $87 billion, you add that up on the monthly bill for Albertans, it's going to be extraordinary.
It is. It truly is. And what is the most difficult thing to take right now is that all of the things we've done to make life more affordable for Albertans will be undone. We have the best affordability opportunities in Alberta of anywhere in Canada. We have the lowest inflation rate, lowest cost of fuel. It's got the highest wages. I stopped here in northeast Edmonton because I wanted to show how much action is going on here in Alberta. People don't realize that we've had 92,000 people came to Alberta in the last half of last year. 92,000 people are now calling Alberta home. That's amazing. That's amazing. We've got 4.6 million people out in Alberta, 2 million full-time jobs, 2.4 million Albertans are working, more than ever in our history. And people want to change that. We're so successful. Our venture capital investments, Bruce, have been record-setting over the last 3 years, and the most ever right now being brought into Alberta for venture capital investments. Why? Because UCP policies work. Low taxes, no PST, making sure we're a business-friendly government. We're just starting, and there's some things that have some hiccups. Healthcare is one of them. I have a personal vendetta there to make sure healthcare gets fixed, as does most of my caucus colleagues. We have to do something, but truly, we're on the right path. The numbers are indicating that the things we are doing are making a sincere, successful completion in people's lives, especially in healthcare and education in this province.
Yeah, the economy, no question, going gangbusters, and good on Danielle Smith and the leadership of her cabinet. Frankly, the leadership of yourself, Brian. I'm going to ask you to do some double duty tonight. I know you're on the road. You're going to be up near Gregoire Lake. There's a fire burning there. Can you give us an update? And for the people down south and in the Calgary region, we're broadcasting throughout the province. But what is it like? What are conditions like? And any update on that fire?
Bruce, I just talked to my constituency manager here a few minutes ago, and he was telling me that there's still some evacuation orders where people are waiting to see whether they will be evacuated. Nobody's been evacuated yet near Gregoire Lake. That's about 30 minutes south of Fort McMurray, and I sure hope the fires don't get that close. But this particular fire, I understand, was in a serious situation at one time, but now is under control. So we're just going to have to count on our emergency personnel and our experts. And let me just say that I know firsthand the Premier has asked me to keep her updated in relation to what happens with the emergency fires around my area and around Northern Alberta, and I'm doing just that.
Awesome. Listen, Brian, I know it's 7 years to the date since the Fort McMurray wildfires. And listen, you were front and center with the work that you did then. And I know so many Albertans appreciated it. Thank you for taking time out of your day today to join us. We appreciate it. I'll let you get back on the road.
It's my honor to serve Albertans, Bruce. It truly is. Thank you.
All right. There's Brian Jean, Fort McMurray, Lac La Biche, joining us this evening. Let's go back to the electricity story for a little bit and try and dig into some of the numbers that are coming out today. Justin Trudeau's accelerated electrical regulation program being supported in effect by the Alberta New Democratic Party and Rachel Notley, but not supported by the Saskatchewan NDP. We're going to ask some tough questions of our conservative analyst tonight. Let's go to the war room and join Vitor Marciano, who is going to try and make sense of all of this to us tonight. Vitor, thank you for joining us. This was a huge announcement yesterday by the NDP, and when costed, it really was a huge announcement. Give us some clarity on the numbers, first off.
Oh, well, the numbers are always complicated because you're dealing with electricity and you're dealing with econometric modeling. The numbers are extra complicated in Alberta because traditionally we've allowed electricity to be built by private companies. So we have ISO, the electrical system operator, and they just monitor the system and let private companies decide to make their own investments in electricity. Because of the decisions that have been made at the federal level and at the provincial level, a whole bunch of our private electricity generation companies were planning on making investments between now and 2050 so that we can get to net zero. Mm-hmm. And, those investments will cost billions and billions of dollars. Those investments are, predicated on making changes to technology, making a bunch of things happen so that we can get to net zero. And they're all pretty reasonable if you think about 2050, because that's 27 years away. So, it's past the lifespan of a lot of the power plants that are currently working. But what happened with the NDP is that they quietly made this promise that they don't really want to talk about, that instead of doing this 2050, they want to do it 2035. And 2035 is very, very early. It's a problem because when you try to do all of this by 2035, you can't build dams, you can't build large-scale nuclear, you can't build SMRs. The amount of things you can do in the next 11 and a half years is really limited and really expensive. So AESO, the regulator that controls all of this, said, how can we model what this will actually cost to do in the next 11 and a half years? And their model was, and this is from last summer, so the number for sure has gotten a bunch higher. Their number was that it was going to be about $52 billion more than whatever we were going to spend on electricity to get ready to make this 2035 number work. And Rachel Notley wants to defend this number, but let me quote an NDP MLA from Saskatchewan. It's too far, it's too fast, it's unrealistic. This is not, the United Conservative Party saying it. It's an NDP MLA from Saskatchewan recognizing that this promise is just too much. Yeah, so what you have is, go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, we talked about exactly that a little bit earlier, Vitor, with Brian Jean. It is too far, too fast when we're talking about this kind of number. But here's what I want to do. Like, I always think of things from a newscaster standpoint as how does this impact the everyday Albertan? And, if you're watching us right now, you're wondering, look, what does this mean on my power bill? And what the NDP is proposing here would see already high electricity rates skyrocket, would it not?
Absolutely. So basically, you've got very high power bills right now. Your power bills are going to keep going up because we're going to have to build more electricity. Your power bills are going to keep going up because Justin Trudeau's carbon tax is set to almost triple between now and 2035. And then what ISO and Navius, this other firm that we had look at it, say your power bills will go up even higher because of this promise. ISO figures that power bills will go up by about 40% more than they otherwise would just to make this 2035 promise work.
Vitor, Nancy Southern, who is Nancy CEO of ATCO? Do I have the?
She's CEO of Canadian Utilities, which is one of the divisions in the ATCO group.
Thank you. Another tip for the old newscaster was you never go to the desk without information beside you that you're going to need. In any event, she is highly regarded and highly respected, and she knows this stuff better than anybody. And she too was discussing this today. What did she have to say about the issues?
So Nancy at the Canadian Utilities AGM was talking about the danger of the Canadian electricity regulations and this plan to get rid of natural gas. She was talking about it both from the electricity standpoint and from the cost of moving to electrifying home heating, because that's another thing that's in this Trudeau plan, is that we're going to get off of natural gas to heat our homes, and we're going to have to heat our homes with electricity. And Nancy was making the observation that the extra power plants we would need so that Albertans could heat their homes with electricity would be another gigantic number. It's another $75 billion in capital just for that. But that's separate from what we were talking about today. There's, when you talk about electricity, when you talk about these gigantic utility numbers, the numbers get out of whack really quickly. But Bruce, I want to walk people through some of the thinking on it, because they need to understand the dynamic and the nuance of this.
I challenge you to do it. I challenge you to do it, Vitor, and do it in such a way that we are able to connect the dots. All right.
Well, and I'm going to try, and it's hard and it's complicated and it's made more difficult when you have different people doing reports, and when they're forecasters and econometricians, they sometimes do their reports in different nominal dollars. They'll use dollars from different years. So, for example, Navius for us in their report, they use 2015 dollars because that's what their model does. ASO was using 2021 dollars. So you've got to make the adjustments. But when I try to make the adjustment and try to do it all in current dollars, now remember, this is a problem that's going to be paid in future dollars. Mm-hmm. The investments that ISO says the generation industry will have to make will result in a loss to Alberta's net GDP over these 11 years of $35 billion in 2015 dollars, or $43.2 billion if we want to use today's dollars. Ultimately, the econometricians and the economists will say, well, you can't really add GDP dollars and individual dollars. So let's be clear. We talked about two separate numbers. ISO says the power plants, the people who pay for the power plants, are going to have to spend at least $52 billion in 2021 dollars, which is a bigger number in today's dollars. And then Navius says that doing that is going to cost the economy at least $35 billion in 2015 dollars. Or we worked it out, we think it's about $43.2 billion in today's dollars.
Well, I'm not a mathematician.
Put together, none of them are good news.
Yeah, I'm not a mathematician, but you put those numbers together, you get $87 billion.
Yeah. 52, 35, is it 87 billion that the economists would agree? No, but for Joe six-pack, it's $87 billion at least, because we were very gentle when we didn't gross up the numbers, that they're going to pay more over the next 11 years because of this policy idea.
Look, no matter how you slice it, it's ridiculously expensive, and it's probably not doable. And it's bad policy when even the Saskatchewan NDP is coming out against what Trudeau had proposed, that the Alberta NDP are doubling down on it. Vitor, thank you for trying to provide some clarity. I think you did. And for people that know it well, I'm sure you did. Thanks for joining us tonight. I know we'll have you back on, and we appreciate your insights as always, Vitor. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Vitor Marciano is in the UCP War Room tonight. Again, a lot of numbers to crunch on this issue. I think the bottom line for you in Alberta is pretty simple. What was proposed by the NDP will see your utility bills skyrocket, and probably not something that is frankly even obtainable. And you'll hear it talked about over the days ahead. But certainly from the UCP playbook, there is a better path forward, and they'll be pursuing it. Hey, one of the things that we want to do in here on a nightly basis is we want to recognize some of the teams that are around the province door knocking, and we want to be able to give a shout out to those that are doing the most door knocking. So tonight, we're going to raise some boards. We do this in 5 different regions. If you have seen somebody at your door in Calgary, Acadia, in Calgary, Klein, or Calgary, Boular, McCall, You have the top 3 door knocking teams in the Calgary region, and well done to everybody involved with the UCP teams. Up in Edmonton, it's Edmonton Meadows, it's Edmonton Ellerslie, and it's Edmonton Whitemud. To the north, Morinville, St. Albert, Lesser Slave Lake, and West Yellowhead. And central, which includes the areas surrounding Edmonton, Sherwood Park, Strathcona, Sherwood Park, Lacombe, Ponoka. And in the south, Brooks, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge East, and Lethbridge West. I know they're working very hard, certainly in Lethbridge. And the top riding of all is Tyler Chandros in Calgary, Acadia. They did the most work, so a shout out to Tyler and his team. They're going gangbusters. You know, I was thinking that this might be a good idea. If you have some pictures along the campaign trail, you've got people coming to your door, you've had an interaction with a candidate, you've got a great team that's out doing some work, send them to us. We're going to put an email address up on the screen, and maybe we'll air some as the broadcast carries on from night to night. We'll try and add more bits of information for you and show you what's going on in all the regions of the province. So recap at unitedconservative.ca. Again, that's recap at unitedconservative.ca. And thank you for tuning in with us tonight as we unraveled some shocking numbers, frankly, on what's being proposed for this province by the New Democratic Party. I don't think we'll ever get there. We will continue to monitor policies, and we will continue to not monitor platform announcements. We'll give you feedback, we'll give you reaction, and we will do interviews every night right here on the broadcast. Again, it comes to you live at 9 o'clock, and then we will leave it up so you can watch it on Danielle Smith's Facebook page and other sites. Please share it. And share the information with everybody. We try to get all jammed in here that we can. And join us tomorrow. Tomorrow is May the 4th. So looking forward to talking to you on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you and join you. We'll see you tomorrow as we continue moving Alberta forward.